hit the fan. But here's the thing. You've got a ton of fantasy relevant storylines throughout the entire league. Will this quarterback play? Will that quarterback be allowed to play? Is this quarterback going to suck as bad as he did last year now that he's on a new team with his old offensive coordinator? The list goes on. And what about so many of these other running backs coming back from injuries? Quarterbacks, wide receivers going to new teams. I'm going to cover what I think are the top 7 fantasy storylines heading into training camp for the 2021 season. And listen, I can't hit on everything. I hope you understand that. But I do have videos on so many of these other topics, like will Saquon Barkley be back at full strength heading into the start of the season? What should we expect from Dak Prescott? And so much more. So check everything out on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Once you're done with this one, let's dive into it. But before we do me a solid. If you enjoy these videos, if you think they helped you, hit that thumbs up. It's huge for us here at Awesemo. Subscribing to the channel as well. Help us hit that 5,000 subscriber mark and continue to grow this channel so we can keep putting out great free content. Let's do it. The Steelers have definitely been one of the more difficult teams to figure out this offseason. So hopefully we'll begin to get some answers in training camp. Ben Roethlisberger's coming off a season where he attempted 608 passes and threw for 33 touchdowns while finishing as the QB 14 on the year. But things unraveled late in the season as the Steelers dropped 4 of their last 5 games after starting the year 11-0. Here's the thing, though. Pittsburgh had a really easy schedule during their winning streak, but they also got absolutely screwed by COVID-prompted rescheduling, having to play 3 games in 12 days and 4 in 20. That's a ton. Roethlisberger couldn't have looked worse as that grueling schedule came to a close, but 2021 is a brand new year, even if he isn't getting any younger. I'm actually not even here to talk about whether or not I think
I was just start chat. I'm wondering which one of Mayo's guests he's talking about. That's hilarious.
someone just followed me called the Fantasy Frauds. And we're going to open, this is going to be a cold open here. The Fantasy Frauds, a football podcast for everyone who loves fantasy football but isn't very good at it. Just do the opposite of everything we say. I'm almost compelled to listen to that now.
How come they didn't follow me? I got to find these guys.
I don't know, man. They're probably brand new. Anyway, what's up, everybody? This is a very exciting day to be talking NFL, not just NFL, not just fantasy football, but NFL DFS, because DraftKings prematurely nutted and decided that it'd be a good idea to release all of their salaries for week 1 in July. And as absurd as that is, right? As absurd as all of that is, we haven't even gotten into the pricing yet. I can't lie. I was actually really excited to see it. I combed through all of these the day it happened. Like as soon as I found out, I was like, all right, let me go position by position. See, I'm not setting up spreadsheets or anything yet, but I'm excited. I'm also Dave Loughran on Twitter at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. Hit your boy up with a follow if you haven't done so yet. And while you're at it, you got to follow Ben Rasa, who's joining me today for this little expedition at JazzRaz DFS, double Z, single Z DFS. What's good, brother?
Yeah, man. I didn't anticipate in early August we'd be doing this, but I'm in the same way. I'm like, that is really dumb to release pricing so early, but I'm glad that they did it because it's really interesting to see, and we get our first dip into what's going to be a really fun NFL season.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got some comments already. Mike Campbell, Laffy, You better lead me to 1 million or I'm coming after your ass. I got to lead myself to 1 million first.
Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about NFL. It is such a tilting sport, but I'm such a sucker. I love it. Like, you could have 2 good weeks on the season and be positive, but some of those weeks, you and I think you and I tilt with the like back and forth to each other because we do a show together every Sunday. We tilt in an inordinate amount because there's so many things where one play, like one 90-yard Ronald Jones touchdown can make or break your week. And similar to baseball, where one home run can take you from first to 2,000. In these large field tournaments, the smallest things that can happen can make or break it. And you're going to have flat out, you're going to have probably, if you're playing tournaments, you're going to have more losing weeks than not, but you need to have those big weeks. And the prize pools, even in the single entry, the 3 max, Ben, are so big that you can position yourself nicely no matter what your bankroll is to get in good contests each week without having to max out the millie.
Oh, no doubt about it. The NFL, I mean, it's the king. I don't think it's crazy to say that. We all know it. And 1 week can set you up for a very, very long time. And it's not just, oh, you got to win the millie. As you mentioned, the 20 max, the 3 max, up and down the stakes, massive opportunities, showdown, all sorts of things. And it is exciting to get it back. I do think that with week 1 pricing out so early, you almost have to treat the season as 1 week with this and then 17 normal weeks, because this is just going to be a wild, wild start to the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went out and got a Red Bull today. I kicked them for a while, and then I got back on it after my daughter. Well, my daughter was born, and it was just, you know how it goes. Well, you don't, but you can guess.
I can guess, yeah.
And then she started sleeping well. I'm like, all right, go back to coffee. I don't even like coffee much. I've been trying to do it black, which just tastes like shit. But
yeah, that's
trying
awful.
to cut down on the sugar. Do you do coffee? Do you do nothing? Are you just all natural?
Yeah, all natural. Yeah, water. No, I mean, I don't drink caffeine. Nothing against it. I just don't like coffee. Do you drink any soda, or are you just water all day? No. The only time I'll drink soda is, if I'm drinking like vodka sodas or anything like that.
Right.
No, just straight soda.
I stay away from the sodas as well. I've actually been waking up and chugging a bottle of water, like a 16-ounce bottle of water.
You got me on that.
What's that?
Game changer.
It is a game changer. It really is. Like, who would have thought that water, the one substance that we need to survive, could make you feel as good as it does? But this will make me feel good for a little bit, and then it won't. But yeah, Ben, she learned how to roll over at night from her back to her stomach. Problem is, she hasn't exactly gotten the stomach to the back part down yet. So she just flops around like a fish out of water, and I got to get up and flip her back around and go back to bed. It's brutal.
Yeah, well, that's where Red Bull comes in. So I see you, just chugging that. It's good. Get the energy up on the show.
That's right. I don't want to be dead.
Once the cameras go off, chat, you don't know what happens when you wither away.
Not true. I've been doing 100 push-ups a day recently.
What are you like, training for the Ironman? You're drinking water, cold showers. You're like ready to climb Mount Everest.
Dude, Wim Hof climbed Mount Everest in nothing but shorts and bare feet. So
good for him.
I'm not there yet. I just want to be healthier. That's all. As I drink a Red Bull, but you get the point.
Do you need a cigarette break during the show, or are you good to do the full hour?
I didn't say I was perfect. I said I was trying to get healthier.
I respect that.
Anyway, we're glad to have you guys with us. This is a fun show. If you haven't done so yet, hit that thumbs up. If you're stoked to talk a little week 1 DFS, as happy as we are about this, and subscribe to the channel. We're 56,500 subs. I haven't done a show on this channel in weeks. Like, I feel like a couple of weeks now. I've been hanging out on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel, pumping out as much content as possible. Really, if you're already subscribed to this one, do us that solid and subscribe to that one, because we're already at like 5,300 subs. It's a newer channel. We're cruising, and the Awesemo Odds channel is getting there too. Hit them both up. With NFL around the corner, we got everything you need on those as well. So, Ben, if you look at the topics, I titled one, why DraftKings, why? Now, on one hand, I'm happy that the salaries are out, but on the other hand, some of these salaries are so crazy. And we're talking like these came out a couple days after training camp started, and we're already seeing injuries. We're already seeing like quarterback competitions with Fields and Lance. We have no idea who it's going to be. Matt Nagy can say whatever he wants, but I'm not sold on Dalton being the starter. I'm not sold on Garoppolo being the starter. Some of these rookie salaries are insane. Like, we're not even a full week in the training camp, and you already have salaries for week one. I can't even begin to imagine what these lineups are going to look like once we actually get to September and regular season week one.
I mean, that's the drawback. I'm super excited that we're doing the show. I'm super excited I get to browse these salaries, but you're going to have funnel pricing all over, and you're going to have ownership on certain players that are going to reach, ridiculous proportions because of injuries and opportunities. When a couple people, I mean, we'll get to, I guess, the Colts at some point in the show, but that's not even, when you get a running back or a big time receiver that goes down, and someone inevitably is going to, you're going to have a couple guys in the skill position players that are towards the bottom, and they're going to be massive, massive chalk. And it creates interesting opportunities, in the game theory realm, but that's the drawback of DraftKings doing this too early.
Yeah, that's the drawback for sure. The positive is we get to talk about it. And there are some crazy salaries, specifically rookies. I'm not really sure what DraftKings was thinking when pricing these rookies. And I say this too from like a psychological standpoint of people playing DFS, right? Now, a lot of people go just by the numbers. A lot don't, especially in week one. They're just discovering this. You and I both know that DraftKings is clearly going to do massive sign-up bonuses. DraftKings Sportsbook is going to do huge promotional bets and stuff like that to get people in the door or back in the door for week one. And you're going to have a lot of people playing DFS in week one that are thinking, and I'm not necessarily even saying this is wrong, after some of the rookie seasons we've seen in recent history, not necessarily running backs, because that happens. They seem to hit more often than wide receivers in the past. And that's why they go so much earlier in redraft leagues and best ball. But think about some of the receiver rookie seasons that we've seen recently. You always hear rookie receivers take some time. They usually don't hit as much. Claypool had a ton of touchdowns and some monster games in his rookie season. Justin Jefferson was another one. T. Higgins, before Joe Burrow went down midway through week 5, is another one. CeeDee Lamb was on pace for a monster season before Dak Prescott went down and still had a very quality rookie season. You just look at all of the, not all of them, but a lot of those rookies from last year. If they were priced where the rookies for this season are priced right now, and some of them like Jamar Chase are as NFL ready as you can get, like in hindsight, you would have so much rookie exposure to even the wide receiver position going into the first week.
It's going to be really interesting to see some of this. You're, of course, the Eagles guy, probably not going to be out there potentially with your boy Devonta Smith. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are going to come in ready to play. We rarely see the guy I want to talk about the most in the rookies is Kyle Pitts, because, it's been talked about a lot. Tight ends, it takes some time, and in a lot of situations, even really talented guys, they come in, I'm not going to say they struggle, but they don't hit the ground running. He seems different. I think everyone that evaluates him says he's different. We rarely see teams go that high for a tight end. And you look at him and Hurst, I'm very interested to see at 4,400 what the ownership's going to look like in a tight end group that, besides the big couple, usually it's devoid of reasonable options.
Are you buying into the Pitts hype?
It's hard not to. I mean, I go back and forth because I'll be honest, I watch a lot of college football, and yes, he stood out. There's no doubt, but he didn't stand out. And maybe this is just a leak by me. I didn't watch him and think like, this is a transformative player that I've never seen. It looked like, wow, this guy is going to be good in the NFL potentially. But the way people talk is that this is, Gronk reincarnated and times 2
as a rookie.
Yeah, like just ready to roll. And maybe he is going to be that good. I like him like everybody else, but I am a little concerned that the hype train is just out of control with him right now.
It sure feels like it. And another thing that will always kind of contribute to that is when you are the highest drafted tight end in the history of the NFL, that probably has people going, oh, all right, well, maybe he is the real deal, even though I might not know as much about him as Ben does, who watches a ton of college football. He went number 4 overall. Maybe there's something there. And I think if we looked at this, we'd both say, all right, well, Kyle Pitts is probably going to have a long and successful career in the NFL. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying anything to the contrary, but I think what I'm seeing so much of, and maybe you can clarify here, because yes, he's $4,400. If you look at the tight end position itself, He is the 8th highest priced player. He's behind Mike Gesicki and Lance Thomas and Hunter Henry, which I don't know why Hunter Henry's priced there, but that's besides the point. Do you buy into that? Well, Kyle Pitts isn't a traditional tight end. Kyle Pitts is, a freakish athlete who can be on the field for every snap. Do you think he's a good enough blocker? Ben, do you think he is that type of once in a generation talent that can come out and operate like an AJ Brown in his rookie season or a Justin Jefferson in his rookie season? I'm not saying the same archetype, but in the sense of like a rookie pass catcher doing what those guys did.
I mean, that's what I obviously Atlanta thinks that because, again, you just mentioned the things he's in uncharted territory. Do I think he can do that? I do, but at the same time, I don't know. You've got Hurst there and you've got a different position. As I said, tight end traditionally takes a little longer to get it. I mean, there are more and more hybrid tight ends, my guy, and I'm not going to compare Evan Ingram to Kyle Pitts for various reasons. But, you get some of these guys that are kind of a hybrid tight end wide receiver, and he certainly is the elite category of that. So I think that's going to be one of the buzz names, though. You've got some receivers. You certainly got Najee Harris. You've got the QBs, but Kyle Pitts stands alone. Most people, I would venture to say, can barely name another tight end in terms of the rookie class.
Who would you say is the second best rookie tight end?
I mean, the other rookie tight end that I like in terms of dynasty and stuff that I've looked at is Brevin Jordan, who is not relevant in the DFS world. He's on the Texans. And I think that when I watched him play at Miami, he actually reminded me of Kyle Pitts a lot. And that's something that, I get. You've got Freiermuth, who I think would probably be the consensus one. But again, there's just not a lot of relevant names there. And that's one of the many reasons why Kyle Pitts is going to be very, very talked about all year.
Another rookie that really stands out to me is Jamar Chase. And
yes,
like if you're in season long leagues right now, Jamar Chase is going in the late 4th, early 5th round. You're spending draft capital to get him. You have T. Higgins, who they drafted early first pick in the 2nd round last year. You still have Tyler Boyd. You have Joe Mixon. And then you're hoping that Joe Burrow takes that leap forward. What I'm seeing with people, and I'm not even saying they're wrong, is that there is this assumption or foregone conclusion that Joe Burrow will take that obvious and significant step forward this season. If that's the case, then everybody can eat. But Jamar Chase is $4,800. And when I'm looking at pricing, I like to see what's going around them. So he's $4,800. He hasn't played a snap, but the guy is unbelievable. He's clearly NFL ready. And he's facing a Minnesota defense that was far from spectacular last season in the secondary. But he's priced the same, actually cheaper than Traquan Smith, Corey Davis, Curtis Samuel, Laviska Shenault, cheaper than Sterling Shepard, Jacoby Meyer, Tyler Boyd, Russell Gage. He's a lot cheaper than. The list goes on, right? Like I could just keep scrolling up and there'd be head scratchers. What do you think of the pricing on a rookie like Jamar Chase?
Yeah, I mean, I come in pretty sour because I didn't like that pick. I was adamant that they should have taken Sewell because Joe Burrow, I think, has everything you want to take the leap, except the most important thing. He has no offensive line, and he already has one knee gone. So
it seemed like it's not like the Cowboys taking CeeDee Lamb when he was the best available, but they already had a good offensive line. This was like a clear and evident weakness that they just decided to neglect.
And I don't think it's a hot take to think that Penei Sewell is going to be just one of those guys that you just don't worry about the position for the next decade. I didn't really get that. Now, getting back to the DFS side, Jamar Chase is an amazing player. He's going to have to contend with a lot of other weapons, but you just mentioned it. I think everyone's in love, generally with the shiny new toy. You threw out about 20 rookies to start the show. Jerry Jeudy's another one who is right there. I think that Denver in general is primed to take a step. There's a lot of names that you listed, and I think they're not as glamorous as everyone loves to be early. Oh, I want the new guy that no one knows about, even though everybody knows about him. I think you can look to a lot of the more established players in these ranges, and they may actually be ownership pivots in week 1, which is crazy to think about.
No, I'm with you. I mean, do I still think that Jamar Chase is too cheap in the sense that he's going to be popular because the Bengals stack is going to be really popular with how cheap they are? Yeah. But do I think that we're already celebrating certain rookies as, the second coming of Justin Jefferson? He's just the easiest example. Yeah, I do. And I'll give you an example of this one. People might disagree with me here, but Elijah Moore's minimum salary. So I totally get that. I understand why you would be like, all right, he's the cheapest receiver there. Granted, I don't even know. We'll build a lineup at the end of the show. I don't even know if we're going to have to go minimum salary with some of the value out there.
So
but
much value.
Yeah, but if we do, fine. But it's just so strange to me that we look at Elijah Moore and we're like, you know what? This is the guy for sure. Less than a week in the training camp. The Jets, to me, are probably the most difficult team to figure out preseason because Corey Davis just signed a 3-year, $37 million contract, coming off clearly his best season in Tennessee. And that was alongside A.J. Brown with a super run-heavy approach. He was 14 yards shy of 1,000. He missed 2 games. He had 5 games of 100-plus yards, more than A.J. Brown. You have Jameson Crowder, who, if he's still there to start the season, I assume he will be at this point, then Jameson Crowder, while he may see a more limited role, he's still there. And it just feels – and another thing is, if you're talking about just the position altogether, it's not even just those guys. Last year, you drafted a second-round wide receiver. So you have Corey Davis, you have Crowder, Denzel Mims. I'm not saying he's good, but he's still on the roster. What is it is it just the flavor of the week that we go, you know what, Elijah Moore is clearly that guy now, and he's the number one out of the gate? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's just everybody. And listen, Ole Miss is producing actual monsters with Metcalf and A.J. Brown. But, we'll see. I just think that everybody is so quick. Denzel Mims is a guy that, I'd say he's a work in progress, but you know what? He did get a lot of reps in that offense next year. I think guys naturally are able to take a step up in that second year. And even when you look at the pricing, we're jumping around a little, but I'm going to go to your hometown, like someone like Jalen Reagor, who just couldn't get started last year. He's only 3,700. And depending at where Smith is at, he's the type of guy that he's not going to have nearly as much hype as this new class of receivers. And to me, he's got just as much upside and is just as primed to have a big year, except he's already got a year under his belt.
We've got over 120 people watching right now. It just shows how this insatiable need for anything other than baseball.
That's my whole mantra in life, is anything other than baseball.
We got some, I'm with you, but I mean, our boy Adam Scher, if you're going to be playing baseball, if you're going to be playing MLB DFS right now, you need to be watching these shows, because Adam is on my money's on a heater, an absolute MLB heater. And he's been dishing out some top-notch information. So, we talk shit on baseball, but at the same time, if there's money to be made, and clearly there is, check out all of the shows, Strategy Show, Deeper Dive, Live Before Lock, and all of that good stuff. But again, it just shows, I love what's going on here. And so wait, Devonta Smith, assuming he is active, they said he's going to miss a couple to a few weeks. This whole team gets injured before the season starts anyway. If he's active and not limited for week 1 and get some preseason reps in, where do you stand on him?
Again, it's so far out, we'll see, but I'm not gonna say I like that he got hurt, but I do like that he is now at the back of the list, because everyone's moved on to everyone who's active. And it's like, oh, Smith, well, he's sorry, I'm not going to worry about him. If he comes back beforehand, he's the Heisman Trophy winner. He's got everything that you need. We'll see. Your offense, I think, is one of the more interesting in general, because you've got a very mobile quarterback that we're not sure, time will tell where Hurts is going to be priced and where he should be priced. And ultimately an Eagles stack week in and week out, I think, is going to be pretty low owned in a lot of circumstances, just because, again, when there's uncertainty, it's a lot of people are, gun shy for reasons that are understandable. But I'm pretty high on some of these weapons that you have on the outside, pending Hurts is able to get them the ball.
Reagor's a really interesting one to me. And he's someone I've promoted as a late round draft this year. He's going in like the 13th round. Devonta Smith is going in the 6th round of drafts. That's a huge gap. Huge gap. What's that?
That just seems too big of gap.
I agree. And listen, Smith is one of only 3 receivers to ever win the Heisman. And he did so in a really tough conference. It's not like he was playing in some shit conference. This was like he faced good defenses. But we haven't seen his size at the NFL level, especially off the line of scrimmage. We haven't seen if Nick Sirianni is actually capable of getting him more involved, like just in a variety of ways. A lot of coaches are just not as creative as others. Smith could be amazing. He could also be a disappointment in year 1. And Jalen Reagor, who was a first-round pick last season, could stay healthy and might actually be decent. And I don't think it's, beyond us to say that Carson Wentz was so bad last year that some of these performances and weeks you just have to throw out the window altogether.
No doubt. Again, I think the theme that I'm taking of this show is that everyone is so starved for the NFL that things are moving exponentially crazy. One thing breaks. Justin Fields apparently is tearing up camp right now, and the pendulum is going to swing. And I'm a huge Justin Fields guy, but it's going to swing so massively in the favor now of, how good are the Bears going to be? Fields, we got to get him on the field immediately. Is he going to start week 1? Is he Mahomes? And it's just like, hold on, let's not get crazy yet. And don't forget about these guys who maybe had a down year. They're not Justin Jefferson to start. Their careers are not written just yet.
What about, and you're right, but what about somebody like Trey Lance, who, listen, I don't care, chalk or not, or we want to pivot. This salary is just wrong. You have to me, you know what this should have been like? You know how in showdown slates, DraftKings is actually always good about pricing the backup quarterback at a spot where, you can't confidently draft them. Like you can't, if you're drafting them, you're not paying minimum salary for them and hoping somebody gets hurt. You're paying a decent price. Like you're paying a mid-range price for them. Probably. What's up, Jordan? What are you laughing at? You all right? Okay. What's that?
No, I'm with you. I'm following you while we watch Jordan's antics.
I'm just all you can see is like the bottom of the mouth, making me nervous over there. At 4,500 though, let's just say, and I'm not suggesting this is going to be the case, but he's a 3rd overall pick. What if he does win the starting job for week 1 and he's facing the Detroit Lions? They're the worst defense in the league last year, even though they overhauled some of it. There's no way they're just gonna click in week 1 and look great.
That's gonna be, again, major storyline. I don't know about you. I think he's got a pretty decent shot to be the week 1 starter right now. I'm also not sure what we get out of him in general, how good he's gonna be. But for just a week 1 slate honing in, if your quarterback, and we've talked about this a lot, you don't get this much during the year. If you're rostering a $4,500 quarterback, you've got massive amounts of dollars to spend up at these skill position players. If you punt defense, you're basically loading up at running back, wide receiver, and tight end. And that's going to be a very intoxicating and appealing build.
We're going to talk about some questionable salaries that aren't rookies, but I just want to hit on a couple more with you. And if you have any to throw out there as well, let's do it. Michael Carter has been lining up with the first team offense. Okay. 4th round pick. If he decided to go pro 2 years ago, he probably would have been 2nd round pick.
Yeah. He was in an interesting situation in North Carolina with Javonte Williams, who's another, rookie that's getting a lot of hype.
Yeah. But his 2019 season was insane. Like Carter's the season. And then 2020, the efficiency took a hit. He just didn't look as good. He ended up being a day 3, 4th round pick. But if he's, and the thing is though, Tevin Coleman and LaMichael Pirine and Ty Johnson are the other running backs on that roster. Yes, Tevin Coleman came over with LaFleur and with what's the head coach's name? Salah, right?
Robert Saleh. The Niners. Yeah, Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh came over for the Niners with both of them and probably get some opportunities. But in week 1 against the Carolina defense that you and I both know, the run defense last year was brutal, bottom 5 in the league. What happened? And granted, they drafted all defensive players last year. I assume they will only improve, but still won't be great. What happens with Carter's ownership if he is projected as the starter in week 1? That's just another example. He's minimum salary.
Yeah, again, you're not going to find many things with minimum salary where you've got reliable carries. Now, in a backfield that's that crowded, it's a little scary, and we'll have to see what unfolds. There's going to be a lot of coach speak. Just peeking at OddsShopper right now, Panthers 4-point favorite in that game, total 43, which is pretty low looking around the league. But again, I think the Jets, for a lot of reasons, there's some ways to be optimistic. I'm not super high on Zach Wilson in general, but I do like the skill position players more and more.
Scotty does know, says, I drafted Tevin Coleman with a facepalm emoji. I have some Tevin Coleman. I drafted him in like the 17th round of best ball drafts. I'm fine with that, man.
Yeah, I'm not. That's all right.
Yeah, it's fine. Carter's not locked into like a 3-down role. And if you go back, I think this will surprise people. We all just love recency bias. You go back and look at Tevin Coleman's stats, particularly his touchdown rates and his numbers at scoring the numbers through the air and on the ground. In the 3 years before last year, where he dealt with injuries and then was phased out of the offense after missing like 8 weeks, Tevin Coleman, from a fantasy standpoint, was actually pretty good. So if you get lucky and he is the starter for week 1, or at least getting a decent amount of work, in best ball, you could get some decent games with him. Even season long, if you have a deep bench, it's not the craziest idea. You got any other rookies out there that are priced egregiously?
Not really. The one rookie that I'm really eager to talk about is unfortunately not on the slate with Rashad Bateman, who I think is going to be really good long-term. Grabbed him in our Dynasty League, Laffy. Very excited to have him.
Yeah, you should be.
I am. The only other guy I'll throw out, I'm interested to see, again, we have to see what breaks, but the Giants, I was a little surprised that they drafted Kadarius Toney. He's the flat min. He's kind of a gadget player. I don't know what kind of role he's going to have right off initially. But again, these are the type of names we have to see. We have to see what happens in training camp. If someone goes down, certainly some of these guys could be poised for major target volume. And we know that, at the end of the day, volume is everything. If you're getting a ton of throws, even if they're inefficient, you will have some production, particularly for low price salaries like this.
Javonte Williams also minimum salary, even though word right now is that Melvin Gordon is the presumptive starter. But the last guy to talk about, and this is one of the most kind of fascinating ones for me, and everyone seems to be all over the map on him, and I am more on the downside of him than feeling favorably, is Travis Etienne right now. That doesn't mean I don't like him, but it means I don't. James Robinson was an undrafted rookie phenom last year, basically mostly based on volume, but still. Urban Meyer has previously worked with Carlos Hyde and has said that Robinson and Hyde are his downhill backs, and then Etienne is more like he compared him to Paris Campbell and Percy Harvin, and then called him the duel. I know targets are worth more than carries, but if you're drafting him, well, if you're paying this much for him, 4,900 isn't crazy, especially against Houston. I think he could be a good low-owned play. Like, I'm fine with ETN and DFS at that price if he's low-owned, because maybe his role is expanded, but I have no idea what that backfield is going to look like or what his role is going to look like at all.
Yeah, I mean, again, Jacksonville's a team that it's going to be a whole new ball game there. I don't know what to really expect. 4,900 is a reasonable price tag, but it's also not the min. You're paying a little opportunity cost for there in terms of a mid-range back. I'm a huge fan of him, but again, at Clemson, it's a little different when he's running for like 10 yards a carry. We know that's not going to happen. And I would be really surprised if he's carrying major volume in terms of carries. Maybe they get him 10 touches, 12 touches, 6 targets, 6 carries, something like that. And he can put up a pretty serviceable game, but I don't think that it's just going to be ETN slowly taking over everything in that offense.
I'm with you. And it's not like they don't have DJ Shark and didn't just bring over Marvin Jones and second year Laviska Shenault, who I know you like a lot.
Oh yeah. And listen, Trevor Lawrence, not that I think of him as he's
got some legs though.
He can move though. Like, it's not crazy to think he mirrors Josh Allen and he's vulturing some, touchdowns around the goal line with his legs. So it's not just ETN that has to be implemented. There's a lot of other pieces of that puzzle.
I think you're right. Let's talk about some of the more questionable salaries, not talking about rookies, because that's like an entire segment in its own, which is why we did it. And of course, you want to see the odds for these games. That we just did a whole video on week 1 odds, our favorite picks for week 1, but also how do these odds line up when it comes to these salaries? And Ben, you already talked about it over at OddsShopper.com. You can check all of them now, but not just to use for DFS reference, what you can do as well, but to get the best odds at every book. Like, that's what you got to do. You're going to see when it comes to NFL game lines and sides and totals, they're going to be pretty close across the board, but that might not be the case right now either, especially this early in the year. But also player props can widely differ from site to site. Some sites are just copying other books. And if news comes out and they don't copy that book soon enough, Ben, you could have really good opportunities where, a top receiver goes down and the wide receiver 2 has a prop that doesn't move for an hour on a book. And you and I talk about that all the time. We'll always hit each other up and be like, yo, here's a really good one right here that hasn't moved yet and definitely should have.
It's the easiest thing probably out there in terms of gaining value for betting is just reacting to news when books are a little slow. There's a lot of other intricacies that we don't need to go into, but at the end of the day, if you're using tools like OddsShopper and leaning even on premium Slack that we have, there are people in there saying, wow, this guy's out. And you look to the books, this book hasn't reacted. So that's one of my favorite things with the NFL, certainly the NBA. And I do want to give a quick shout out to the breakfast menu, Luffy, that you hopped on this morning, which is on the Awesemo Odds channel. We're talking player props on there. And that's one of the main reasons we do it, is because it's like, okay, there's a situation here where this line maybe hasn't reacted. We did one this morning. You talked Olympic basketball. I talked a little baseball. More and more as injuries pop up, you're going to be able to gain some value with these NFL sides that it's easy money that you can use for a variety of other things, DFS included.
No doubt about it. And if you're going to sign up on some of those links, you see something good on a book that you're not a part of, use the links we got on OddsShopper.com. OddsShopper is totally free, but definitely clicking those links helps us out a lot and allows us to keep doing what we're doing here if you like the content. So that's appreciated. But it's an awesome site with a ton of amazing tools, all of which are totally free. All right, questionable salaries. I'm going to throw out one at you that I think is the most questionable of all of them. And I'm not even saying he has the best matchup, but Antonio Gibson's $5,900. Okay. On its face, you might be like, yeah, I guess that's okay. But then you consider the fact that he's basically the same price as David Johnson and Kareem Hunt. That to me is wild. I mean, Chris Carson at $5,900 to me also seems a little bit cheap. There's a few running backs in this area, even Joe Mixon at 62, that just seem really low. But Antonio Gibson feels like he is too cheap based on who he's priced around. What do you think of some of these guys that are just questionably priced, whether too expensive or too cheap for week one?
Yeah, I mean, Gibson's one of those guys. We saw flashes of it. He can catch the ball a little bit. Certainly when he gets the carries, I like it. I am very high in general on the Chargers. That's a team that
I am every year. It just never works for me.
Until they all get critically injured somehow each and every year. Like right now.
Like getting the lungs punctured by the team doctor.
Yeah, well, there's that. Hopefully, if they do that, let's not – no offense to Tyrod Taylor, but Derwin James needs to stay on that field this year. If he does, that is a game-changing player. I can't stress that enough. I know he's on the other side of the ball. When I looked at the pricing, because I heard we were going to do this show, the guy that – I want to just kind of ask it and make a statement at the same time. I thought George Kittle would be closer to Travis Kelce. I really did. You got Travis Kelce at $8,300, $2,000 gap to Kittle, and then a $1,400 gap to everyone else. I thought they would be the big two, not 1, 2, and then everyone else. But maybe that's because of Lance.
It's a couple reasons. The overall fantasy football industry is so low on Kittle this season.
Yeah, I don't get that.
I just did a mock draft for a video that'll be out on the Fantasy Football channel late tonight or tomorrow morning. I got him in the 4th round. Waller went in the 2nd, and Kittle went in the 4th. And I think it's a couple of things. First, people go, well, Brandon Ayuk's there. Deebo Samuel's got another year under his belt. They're going to run more. The defense is better, so they won't need to throw as much. And then Trey Lance, of course. But we don't know that Trey Lance is going to start, first of all. We don't know that's going to be the case, especially in week 1. If you had to put odds on Trey Lance, or if you had to put odds on Jimmy Garoppolo starting, I'd still say like minus 250, yes. That might be a lot, but I still think he's a good enough. They went to the Super Bowl with him. I'm not saying he was the reason why, but he was good enough to get them to the Super Bowl. And when healthy, Garoppolo is a perfectly fine quarterback. And they talked about easing Lance into things. So we'll see. But anyway, George Kittle, I think the one thing people don't like about him is the lack of touchdowns. But if I told you that this guy every year is top 3 or 4 at his position in red zone targets, and last year, if you remember this, I know he missed some games, right? He played only 8 games, and the whole team was banged up. They had horrible quarterback play and awful defense. Remember, he had like 3 touchdowns early in the year that all got called back on offensive penalties.
He's just all that stuff to me. I'm not going to say it's a perfect storm, but George Kittle, he's one of the most efficient guys. I mean, look at the targets and receptions. He catches everything that's near him. The touchdowns will come. I remember when Julio couldn't score until he could
Yep.
score. And it just, that offense, I throw everything. San Francisco was a mess. They were decimated by injuries. Nothing was happening. And yeah, maybe there's a QB issue here, but people talk about, well, they don't throw. They never threw a lot. George Kittle can get there easily without throwing because of the efficiency. And again, looking at specifically week 1 inside in Detroit, that sounds pretty good to me. 7.5 point road favorites, over under a 46, which is pretty reasonable. I think Kittle, to me, I thought he was going to be more towards Travis Kelce than he is.
I tend to look at things differently than a lot of people. When I see the lack of touchdowns, I say, God, imagine the upside. What's that?
Yeah, regression. It's coming.
Exactly. Imagine the upside if those touchdowns were to come. Like George Kittle is not someone that doesn't get targeted in the end zone. It's not true. In 2019, if you look at the tight end position and you look at red zone targets, George Kittle saw 17 red zone targets, which was tied with Travis Kelce, and 2 fewer than the league lead, which was Zach Ertz and Tyler Higbee. In 2018 at tight end, George Kittle had 20 or 18 red zone targets, which was the 4th highest behind Ertz, Kelce, and Eric Ebron. But he also crushed yardage totals. He led the entire position with 1,377 yards and 88 receptions. If those touchdowns start to trickle in, even 8 or 9 touchdowns, Ben, on what should be a much improved offense, I'm all for it. And consider this, the most he's ever had in a season is 5 touchdowns. In those years, he finished 2nd and 3rd among all tight ends, behind Kelce and then behind Kelce and Darren Waller. That's with only 5 touchdowns. So yeah, needless to say, I'm pretty encouraged by what he's capable of doing.
I'm looking kind of, here at quarterback, and even everything kind of checks out, but then you get into the mid-range and it's just so loaded. I feel like the interesting thing, we may have a couple rookies, start or in the Colts situation with Eason probably thrown in there. I just don't know if there's going to be that big of a need / the opportunity cost when you've got guys like Rodgers and Herbert and these guys in the mid 6s. Like, do you see yourself paying, a min-price salary even for a guy starting? Or do you think that's kind of unnecessary given the depth of talent?
Yeah, I was looking down at Trey Lance was just one example because it's against Detroit if he starts, but he's going to be popular. It gets kind of ugly. You're right. Going down to and when we're talking like min salary, I'm talking more like sub 5K guys.
Yeah. 45.
Right. Like, yeah. Bridgewater. There's not much there. There's Zach Wilson, 5K, Sam Darnold. I don't think you need to do any of that. Even Jameis Winston against Green Bay, I might be tempted, but his pass catchers without Michael Thomas, man, there's just a dearth of options. There's nothing there. So I start looking into the mid-range as you were discussing. Joe Burrow, I assume he's going to be just insanely popular with.
What about Baker?
Yeah,
right?
Baker. What's funny about Baker is, and about this game, Kevin Stefanski said in the offseason that he's like, yeah, Baker was fine last year. He didn't really mince words. He's like, he was fine. He's good, but there's a lot more he can do. And it's funny because last year was his first year with Stefanski. It was Baker's second year in the league, but it was his first year with Stefanski. It was a COVID-riddled offseason where so much of that was on Zoom and stuff. And there's no way that they fully are. There's no way that they're fully. There's no way that you get everything down and understand everything the way you would in a full offseason. Now he's got his first full offseason and his second season with Stefanski. It definitely makes you wonder if Stefanski's going to open things up more and pass the ball more, which is possible. But I also think this game is an odd one because if they manage to keep Kansas City's scoring output low enough, it's going to be a Nick Chubb type of day all day long. So to me, I think Baker Mayfield, if this turns into a game where Kansas City goes up early, can destroy them, or not destroy them, but can destroy his price point. But if this game is close, Baker's probably going to underwhelm. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's one that I have a tough time evaluating for sure. They are 6-point dogs though.
Yeah. Interesting. That's one I'm going to try to remember this when we do our inevitable week 1 show. And we're talking about probably my favorite tool that we have is the Top Stacks tool for NFL.
Wow.
I could see the Browns being one of those teams that, 5% of people are going, but we have him with a 10% chance to be that optimal stack. Because if the game flow goes good and Kansas City jumps out early, Baker could have a huge day, and he's got every weapon that you could ask for. And I don't think a lot of people are going to go there for obvious reasons in some regard. But that's one, I think, when we're evaluating top stacks, I have a feeling I'll be talking about this again as the season gets closer.
I totally agree. And Jalen Hurts is another guy where I look at him and I go, okay, Jalen Hurts, if you wanted to run him naked without any pass catchers, you could do that. But I don't even mind a single or potentially a double stack. I don't want to load up on that because he was, in the 4 weeks that he started, really 3.5 games, because they intentionally sat the team in the second half of the Washington game, which, by the way, phenomenal decision. I don't care what you say about integrity. That means nothing. It was wise. It was wise to win that game. It turned into just losing that game, Ben, didn't just bring them from 10-6 or 11-6. It got them a first-round pick in 2021 because the Dolphins decided they wanted Jalen Waddle and gave them a first-round pick for next year. So anybody upset about that and the integrity of the game? The integrity of the game is making your team as good as it can be so you can win more games in the coming seasons, and that's exactly what they did. Sorry, I had to say that.
No, I'm more with you than that. Like, if I was running things, my teams would be doing all sorts of shenanigans, but that's neither here. Yeah, I mean, listen, you're going to have more and more as the NFL evolves. You're going to have the question, and we talk about this on Saturdays with me and Matt Gajewski, where you're talking about not just the 300-yard bonus, but how live is the guy for the 100-yard rushing bonus at QB. And Hurts, and certainly Lamar has pioneered this in some ways. It's an interesting wrinkle because you can have exposure to the Eagles, but you might not have the skill position players, and it really changes the dynamic of your team. It's a lot harder because you're not stacking, but at the same time, there's only a couple guys on the slate each week that have that potential for a 100-yard bonus.
I agree. And if you actually wanted to load up on even a double stack with Hurts, it doesn't feel good because he had what I was saying is in those 4 games he started, he had the second worst completion percentage ahead of only, I think it was Jarrett Stidham, and Jarrett Stidham only attempted like 25 passes. So all things considered, Hurts was the worst in those 4 weeks, but he was a rookie. He can use his legs. The offensive line is going to be markedly healthier than it was last year. And, Jalen Reagor's $3,700. Devonta Smith, if he's healthy, is what's he, $4,500. Dallas Goedert's $4,800. There are some cheap options for sure, and it makes for a cheap stack. What about the Justin Herbert? That's such a tough matchup though. Like, I almost want, outside of Gibson, just because I think he's too cheap, I'm tempted to just fade that game.
So I like Washington's defense because Herbert, who I'm a huge fan of, he takes some chances. He gets into some trouble, no doubt about it. He's going to take some hits. Chase Young is absolutely unstoppable. That front is very, very good. I expect the Chargers to put up some points, but I wouldn't be stunned to see him
lose Ben. Jordan, we lost him. All right, we'll get him back. He's what he's saying is that he wouldn't be surprised to see Justin Herbert week 1 of his second year be awful, or more so just make enough mistakes against a really good defense. And with defenses, you guys all know this. Everybody in here knows this. I think all of you guys would at least agree to some extent that when you have super chalky defenses, once in a while they hit, but there's so much variance there that you could go with a cheap D, get a defensive touchdown. Even if they allow 24 points, you get a defensive touchdown, some sacks, and a couple turnovers. It's better than, a top tier defense coming in and giving you, allowing 7 points, but only having a sack and 1 fumble recovery, but no defensive scores. So defensive scores are the biggest thing here. And when you have guys that are risk takers that will throw in the double coverage when the entire side of the field is empty and they can run it back for a score, those do make sense. Washington's defense, I was looking for Redskins. The football team defense is, don't look at me like that, Jordan. That's ridiculous. I said I was looking for that. It's not like I'm out here chanting. The Washington's defense is $3,200. It's middle of the pack. It's not super high. 49ers is $4,200. Like, do you want to pay that much? The question is, when you've got a defense going up against a bad team, but against a bad team that doesn't, or a bad quarterback that doesn't make a lot of mistakes, a bad team that can't move the football but doesn't have a lot of turnovers, it's not that great. Give me one against even a decent offense that is prone to making those mistakes. And when that's the case, yeah, I think Ben has a point there that Washington makes a lot of sense. What do you guys think too? We got 171 people watching. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't yet. Appreciate all you hanging out. I mean, listen, we're more than a month away and we're talking DFS week 1. So this is awesome. And I'm happy that you guys are as pumped to do this as I am. What's your favorite stack? Your favorite stack for week 1, and take ownership into consideration. Like if your favorite stack is Cincinnati, which is fine, what are you going to differentiate with, right? Because if you're going Joe Burrow and then you're going, let's say Jamar Chase and T Higgins, that's, what a cheap stack this is, because T Higgins is $4,700. We got $5,800 per player remaining. If you go and you run out a less expensive defense, let's say, what do we want to do? Buffalo against Pittsburgh. I could see Ben Roethlisberger getting picked off 6 times in this game. They're $2,500. Like that's a spot where I'd be okay with, even though Pittsburgh has a lot of quality offensive weapons. Just throw that in there. You get almost $6,500 per player, almost $6,500 per player remaining. Then you can just make a ton. And Satya Sauce says the whole idea of stacking provides no benefit whatsoever. Points are points. Satya, forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I would suggest that you go to Fantasy Cruncher and look at lineup study and tell me how many of the teams that are winning every week, the big money, are not stacking. The answer is not many at all. Can it happen? Sure. You'll find some of the exceptions to the rules, but I promise you right now, if you start looking at what teams are winning, they're not just team stacking, they're game stacking. I'm not saying run out a six player game stack, but if you had a Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, Jamar Chase with a Devonta Smith run back, those lineups win. And it happens quite often in high octane games with high totals, or even games where one team goes up way big early, is a heavy favorite, but more so because the other team has a bad defense and not a bad offense and is forced to keep up. It's just, it's the way it is. We know that's yeah, exactly, Mike. He's saying games that end in 45-42, you want that game stack. It's just the way it is, because every time your quarterback gets points, or every time your Calvin Ridley gets points or scores, so does Matt Ryan. And you want to make it right. You got to make sure that it works. But yeah, game stacks are huge. So where are you guys at on these game stacks? Who is John Galt? What's up, dude? That guy who is John Galt is awesome. He just went out and gave away like wildly valuable. Maybe that's oxymoron at this point with Top Shot, but appreciate you, John. Was just giving out great Top Shot moments to pretty much everyone. He's a philanthropist in his own way. Says Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, and then punt the D. Yeah, I would punt D. Cram value. I suppose you could do that. I mean, it's going to be tough though. Against Cleveland's D, they're pretty good too. I don't hate it, and ownership comes into play as well. QB plus wide receiver stack always. Yeah, Gary. I mean, I'm looking for that as well. There's no doubt. All right, so let's see. With Joe Burrow, Chase, Higgins, and Bills, you can do whatever you want. So let's throw in, oh God, McCaffrey against the Jets. Let's throw McCaffrey in there against the Jets. See what we get, and then who do we want? Who do we want to round this out with? Give me some options here, fellas. Give me some options that we can. And if we get Ben back, we'll get Ben back. Give me some options that we round this lineup out with, because there's a lot of good ones here. I'm going to throw in, there's some cheaper guys around here too. I'll throw Mixon in because last year, Minnesota, and Jordan, you should pull this up on the screen and I'll give it to you so you can see what we got going on here. It's do it when you can on DraftKings, and I'll tell you what we have. Because last season, Minnesota's defense was really unimpressive. PFF had them as a bottom 5 run defense. In terms of pass coverage, they were like 15th or 17th. So I think Mixon could be a little bit underpriced here. his backup is Samaje Perine. There's no more Giovanni Bernard. And then you've got an undrafted rookie and then a 6th-round rookie behind Perine. This is probably a spot where Joe Mixon can have a very big game. And my assumption is, coming off a lost season last year, more of that recency bias will push his ownership down. And if that's the case, I'm all about it. Ryan says, Najee going to run all over these boys. I could not disagree more with you, sir. I appreciate the comment, but the Bills' run defense, I know they weren't very good last year. I get that. But I just have such little confidence in Pittsburgh's offensive line right now. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right, and that's what Pittsburgh does, and they just go to the ground, and then Najee Harris, as a 3-down back, which he absolutely should be, can crush. So maybe I jumped the gun there a little, but that offensive line in Pittsburgh was so bad last year that I have some real reservations. Now, that's not – oh, you know what? I'm an idiot. I just put Mixon in a Burrow stack. So let's go with your boy. Let's see, because there's a lot of – okay, there's a lot of value. What's up? Yeah, go Burrow, McCaffrey, and then Jamar Chase and Higgins, and then Bills D. This is just to see what a Cincinnati lineup looks like. If we see what a Cincinnati looks like if we try to be different elsewhere. So where else can we be different? I'm huge on Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year. I love him. Don't necessarily love him against Cleveland, but I really like Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year. I don't really care what anybody else says about him. Everyone's so down on him because he wasn't good at the goal line last year, but it doesn't bother me much at all. Eckler's in a tough spot. I'm not going Barkley. Barkley could be seeding work to Devontae Booker. They just re-signed Alfred Morris as well. Who else do we have here? You guys throw out some names if you'd like as well, and we can toss them. And next name that's decent at running back, we'll put him in. Carson at Indy. What's up? Bills D. You know what? Somebody mentioned Raheem Mostert. That's actually really interesting. How much is Trace Sermon's $4,500? Mostert's $5,800. I think Mostert actually makes some sense. Mike Davis against the Eagles. I worry about the efficiency there in week 1. Burrow with Kamara at running back and Adams flex. Can we do that, Tulsa Dog? I already have McCaffrey in there. Can we fit out? We probably can, right? Again, Alvin Kamara, that gives us 47, and Adams is 8,300. Then we're down to, could we? So if we went Adams and Kamara in that lineup, we probably could make this work. All right, let's see if we can make this work. This is wild, but this actually might. There he is. Ben,
that was.
I'm making a lineup right now, along with the help of chat, to try and differentiate here with a Bengals stack with Burrow, Higgins, and Chase. And we've got Bills defense against Pittsburgh, because I think if Rodgers is washed, you could see a huge Bills defense game at home in Buffalo. And then McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, and Devontae Adams are all in there. So we have $29.50 remaining for a tight end and a flex player.
I came in right at the right time. Tight ends, my specialty. Where's Evan Ingram?
Is this doable?
And first of all, chat, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. It's a beautiful day here.
You just lost it all, huh?
I really did. Just no internet. It's on Optimum side. Kind of don't like them, but that's neither here nor there. All right. So one more time, Luffy, what are we looking for here? A cheap tight end?
Yeah, so a cheap tight end. And if we want to get off Devonta, we could look somewhere else. But I do like the idea in this game where there's basically no other pass catchers for New Orleans and no good weapons, to have Kamara and Adams. That's kind of a sexy, no quarterback stack from that game. But we have $29.50 remaining for a tight end and a flex. Can we do it?
$29.50. You're looking at you can't. So Troutman, I think, is going to be a punt that people want to get to, but I wouldn't want to use him with Kamara without the quarterback. I think that's a little thin.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
God, I tried to play Jordan Akins many times last year, and the only thing I remember is he had a touchdown bounce off his helmet. So I think we might have to. I like the way you did that. You got a cheap defense. Is there another cheap Bengal that we could look to?
We could try like a Boyd. And also, you know what? Someone made a good point in chat right now. I like this a lot. Where is it? Oh yeah. Ryan says, take CMC, take McCaffrey down to Cook for the run back, which is a super interesting thought there. You could run it back with him, or you could drop to Justin Jefferson from Devontae Adams. That'll open up $700. There's a lot we can do here. Or Tyler Boyd's the most expensive of the wide receivers.
Yeah, it might have to be. I assume you're not in line with
CJ Awesemo.
I just don't like him or Sample, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither.
That is interesting though. I think that's a great call from chat. I would love to even get, like, I think Irv Smith is primed for a potentially big year.
Yeah, that's actually kind of interesting too. With he's 4,200 though. That feels like
I know.
That feels pricey. I'd rather let's try this, because the problem I'm having is I don't want to get off McCaffrey against the Jets right now, especially as only 4-point favorites. What if we keep Alvin Kamara, go from Adams to Justin Jefferson? That gives us $3,250 per player. Can we make that work and actually feel good about the lineup?
You still got to find a real cheap punt somewhere.
I mean, it was Elijah Moore. I didn't want to, but this is like your perfect Elijah Moore lineup.
It is, because you got a little correlation too. You've got already CMC in there. I think we probably have to throw him in if we're looking to do this.
And then that allows us. Why is David Njoku 3,500? That allows us Gerald Everett against Indy. Herndon, that's ugly. What a dead zone this is at tight end, man.
No, we're gonna make this work. Now that I'm getting my my bearings from, I was running wind sprints up and down to try to reset my router, but it wasn't my router.
Don't worry, I held it down for you, man.
Yeah, and I knew you would, like a trained professional that you
That's
are.
right.
God, this is what makes this so fascinating. These type of lineups are going to become, I guarantee, Lofty, if we did this exact thing in 2 weeks, we could finish this in 5 minutes, because there's going to be 2 or 3 min price players that are auto plays because of injuries.
Yep, injuries, and just like this guy standing out as the number one at training camp. Boom, plug him in. You're right.
All right, so let's see. If we plug more in.
Well, hold on. Let me ask you this. Are you on board with going too expensive running backs there? Because people always suggest flexing a wide receiver. I get it, but I do think we could run into a situation where you do flex a running back because he's just so cheap and he's the starter. But are you cool with too expensive running backs?
I like builds like that. I don't think it's the most optimal, but you have to do things to leverage and be different. And when you have 2 guys that can literally break the slate, if you get them together, you're talking about a correlation and a ownership, cumulative ownership that's, a couple percent. Not a lot of people have it. And that's one way to differentiate in large field tournaments. All right. So we've got 4,150 for 2 spots. Is that where we're at, Luffy?
Yeah. No, well, if we play Elijah Moore, that means we got 3,500 for a tight end remaining.
Who's the flex that I missed?
Elijah Moore.
And then who's the third wide receiver that
Justin
I missed?
Jefferson instead of Devontae Adams.
Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins.
Oh, and Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow. So that's where the Bengals stack. Run it back. Which I know it's sexy, right? Run it back with Jefferson. But what I'm saying is this build's going to be popular. The basic bones of it, right? Like the foundation of it with the Cincinnati stack. Maybe there won't be as much double paying up for running back there. That might make this a little bit unique.
And that's what you need to do with, we talk about this a lot on the PGA side or just any DFS sport. It's not, oh, this guy's chalky, can't play him. That's not true at all. It's that if you do play him, you have to find a differentiation point. And I think with the Bengals stack, people are not going to be looking to the top tier running backs, doubling up with it. So Chad just threw out Firkster for tight end. I don't hate that. I think if you're in a jam and you want to keep the build, you could do that. Is there any defense worse than the Bills that we could go to?
I can check. Firkster's not the worst idea because Jonnu Smith had 8 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And I was just, if you look at his numbers, because he didn't do much outside of that, but he had 18 red zone targets. He had the 5th most red zone targets at his position, only 3 fewer than Kelsey. And that says something, right? Like, he's gone now. So maybe Ferkser gets some opportunities, but you're also bringing in Julio Jones. Ryan Tannehill rushed for 7 scores last year as well. Is there anyone cheaper than the Bills? Let's see. Because I think the Bills against Pittsburgh at 2,500 is really nice for an upside play.
So do I. It's pretty bad down there.
I mean, do we just bet that Trevor Lawrence stinks in week 1?
Then you can go to Ertz or Jared Cook.
He threw 3 interceptions today, and everyone's losing their shit over it.
Yeah, then you could get, like I said, Ertz or Jared Cook or Hayden Hurst if you wanted to be kind of, I don't know. That's a little weird.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's worth it at that point.
No.
Atlanta's minimum salary. Does Jalen Hurts just suck in week 1? It's not the craziest thought.
And then you could get Austin Hooper. God, if you could get to Evan Ingram, I would do this in a heartbeat. $100 short.
Oh God, that Atlanta D is so bad though, man.
Yeah, you're going with catch like a random fumble, and do it.
Let me try something else here. What if I didn't want to do this, but let's try something else. Let's backpedal for 1 second and see if this works. What if we go Dalvin Cook over Kamara, and then here's your run back. I mean, I just with a stack, I want to run back a receiver.
Let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
What if would you be opposed? And I do think, of course, he's warranted to be 77. What about Thielen?
That's actually a great idea. I just wish he was a little cheaper than 7K, but
so do I.
I'm on board with that. All right, let's try Thielen. He had 14 touchdowns last year.
Oh man, I mean, I don't think you'd want to do this, but you got now. You definitely helps with tight ends. You've got Jonnu Smith, you've got Ingram. You could go if you think the game is just out of
double
control,
stack with Irv Smith.
You could double stack with Irv Smith. Tanyan. This is at least guys that I'm comfortable playing in my tight end spot, though.
I don't hate it. Robert Tonyan had like a 22% touchdown rate last year, which is absurd. And
we get Buffalo back, by the way.
Yes.
Worth pointing out. It's not like we have Atlanta in there anymore.
So if we go Irv Smith, it's a full out stack, but I don't hate it.
I mean, if you're really going to a popular Bengals stack, the only way I could see that actually working in a large field tournament is if the game is so crazy that they're going nuts. And if it's that crazy, you've got to think that there's going to be plenty of production on the Minnesota side. Like the total of 48 is going to have to get crushed. So it's not a stretch to think that Irv Smith and Thielen for a combined 11-2 can coexist without the quarterback. It's not optimal, but it can absolutely work.
What's the total in this game?
48.
That's not a bad number.
No. And
at all.
The thing I like about it, and it's hard to, it's not the first dumb thing I've ever said on a show, but there are certain games where I feel like the total is sound, but if you're saying what game has the most likely to eclipse like a 60-point total, it's this type of game. Yes,
absolutely. Because you love the fact that you can have two potent offenses, and we're just assuming that Cincinnati will be improved this year, and two defenses that are not going to hold up.
I think it's, as weird as it sounds, the total seems right. It's not like, smash the over, but I do think there's a lot of times this game ends up, 35-31 style. Last thing I'll say, I don't think it's crazy if you want to change your defense to go Texans D and Logan Thomas at tight end. That also works. I like that.
All right. I know you have a ton of shows today. Do you have more shows?
Oh, I got shows.
Coming up?
Shows on shows. Coming up. PGA show tonight.
Yeah, what time?
7:30.
All right.
We got 4.5 hours to finalize this lineup. We're all right.
I was going to say, I don't want to keep you too long. You got 10 more minutes?
Absolutely. I left for 10 minutes. I'm in the penalty box for 10 more minutes.
Yeah, you got to finish. You got to get that time in. Let's do this. All right. First person to name a team that we will stack. We'll do one more lineup. So first person in chat, name a team to stack, and then we're going to build a stack around them. It can be any team. Now, I'm hoping it's not a team that I'm not stoked about, but I'll do that anyway. I don't care any team, Ben. Just not the Lions.
Yeah, no, I don't like the Lions with their coach that wants to bite people. All right, the Bears.
Not on the slate.
That's tough. Cardinals.
Oh, I like that. That game has a 51 total. I like that a lot. All right. Let's Gene Roberts. Thank God you weren't first, man, because I don't want Jacob Eason in there or Nick Foles. Nick Foles isn't even on the roster yet.
I would still go with Wentz, even though he's critically injured. Make a stand. I don't care.
The low end of that window, he could be back, man. But I need him to play 75% or more snaps to get that first round pick.
He's gonna be all right. Don't worry about it. All right,
the Eagles get a first rounder if he plays 75%. You guys
are racking up first rounders from everybody, I guess.
Listen, that's the way you win. You know this. You got to just load them up. Yeah, and then you can be like the Browns and be good 25 years later after doing that. All right.
What do I mean by Lions coach biting? Did you see that press conference?
Yeah, I saw. That was his introductory press conference.
Yeah, just like, we're going to tackle them and we're fight them and then we're going to bite their legs on the way up. Like, let's not get crazy, guy.
Yeah, he's like, we're going to bite their jugular and watch the blood pour from their neck at the goal line as we celebrate over their still warm corpse. And everyone's like, whoa, easy guy. Yeah, that's easy. What he said, right?
Yeah, you're paraphrasing, but I think that sums it up nicely.
I couldn't remember it verbatim.
Poor Lions. Yeah, sorry, Lions fans in chat. I respect the team, but I don't think they're going to be any good again.
He said ignorant comments about the Lions, who, to be fair, are going to suck on offense, but ignorant comments nonetheless. They're not ignorant comments. First of all, they're opinions, and it's still a month and a half out. We have opinions. But no, I do not think they're going to be good when their top pass catchers are Brashad Perriman and Tyrell Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And they had a good offensive line last year, but their defense was ranked dead last in the league. So even with getting new guys, I don't think the Lions are going to be very good. As a matter of fact, Ben, my favorite week one bet is the 49ers laying 6 on the road against the Lions. I think they come in there and beat the piss out of them. They're 7.5 now. They were 7 earlier, 7.5 now. I don't even care.
Yeah. They need to give Swift the ball 50 times a game. That's not going to happen. And I think it's
not.
But anyway, we've got Kyler Murray. Tennessee time and time again has shown that they can get into crazy shootouts. And that's what we've got on the other side. Total 51.5, 52 for this Cardinals game. A lot of options. We also have the option, Lofty. When you talk about stacking with the Cardinals, I know we're going to stack it, but you can always run Kyler alone.
You can run Kyler alone. You can. Interesting stat. Did you know that in the Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury era, running backs have 33 combined touchdowns? That's a lot.
In
2 years?
I did not know that. I'm just processing that, but that's very surprising to me.
Yeah. They had a lot. And I'm including pass receiving touchdowns too. But yeah, running backs in this offense have averaged 333 carries per season in those 2 years. So they're not just like this aerial attack pass heavy team that doesn't run the football. But Kyler Murray had 11 rushing touchdowns last year. So yeah, those are going to be, what if we do this? What if we go Kyler and then single stack it?
Yeah, I think when you talk about guys with major rushing upside, the single stack is more prevalent because if both your receivers get there, then, it's hard to think that he's also running. That's a very thin margin. So the chances that AJ Green will not be injured by the time the season starts is minimal, but so far he's still healthy. And it looks like I'm fascinated to see where he slides into this offense because I'm a huge AJ Green guy. I don't know where he's at. Rondale Moore, of course, electric rookie. We didn't even talk about him. He's another guy worth considering.
Yeah, he is. Wait, did you say Moore?
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say Rondale Moore. It just feels like a guy you would like.
I mean, incredible college player.
I feel like he's the definition of a human pinball.
Yeah.
In college, I think I'm not making this up, and I might be a little bit off, but it's not. I think 75% of his yards were after the catch.
That doesn't surprise me because Purdue's entire offense was throw him the ball on a screen pass 30 times a game and just let him go.
But watching him bounce off, when I was preparing for the draft and for dynasty stuff and videos, like I watched a ton on Rondale Moore, and I couldn't believe how he bounced off of defenders or would-be tacklers. He's
just one of those guys. He's got a great knack for just getting in space, getting loose. He's the flat min. That's going to be interesting to see what Kingsbury, who, he's made his kind of name on being very innovative and gimmicky in a good way. They got to get him the ball in space. Talk about Percy Harvin earlier in the show. Like Rondale Moore is that type of gadget guy that could be very effective.
All right, let's see. And obviously this is preliminary. We're still very early. Like we could get word that Rondale Moore is not even going to be a starter, right? It's possible. AJ Green is still there. Let's just throw more into it with DeAndre Hopkins. So we'll start with Murray, Moore, and Hopkins. All right.
Okay.
Let's do that. And Way Too Legit says, I'm painting Laffy's portrait in my art studio, but curious about Christian Kirk. Shit, dude, send that over to me when you're done. Love
NFT
to see it.
NFT season. I'd buy that. I was just talking about Laffy NFTs this morning. Look at that.
There you go. What's up, Jalen? Glad to have you back, man. Glad to be back on the channel. We got almost 200 watching right now, Ben, for something that's a month and a half away. So pretty good stuff.
It's going to be great. It's going to be a really, really exciting season. I know we say that a lot, but I've never been so excited for coming off of what we had to deal with last year. I'm hoping for just an awesome NFL season all around.
Absolutely. And hit that thumbs up, guys. If you enjoy this content, greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel and subscribe to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Much appreciated. You'll love the content. If you're starving for football content, as we all are, you're going to love the content over there. I've been putting out short form videos anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes for every single topic you can think of. I promise you'll love it. We got Matt Gajewski and our boy Notorious Fantasy, Nick Lepre, who was in chat doing amazing stuff, and the Awesemo Odds channel that Ben is heading up over there. Amazing sports betting stuff there as well. So this isn't the only channel. Definitely check them out and tell us what you think. All right. Moore, Murray, and Hopkins. Who do you want as? Let's hit our run back first.
So here's the question. I think the next question has to be, do we go like Derrick Henry? Is he just going to run wild, or do we go to the outside?
I like the idea of going to the outside because if Derrick Henry runs wild, I'm super worried about just time of possession. I know that Arizona can score quickly, right? Like they have the weapons to score quickly, but it does concern me a little bit that if you just run the ball to Henry a million times, it takes away from the potential stack that we have.
That's reasonable. I mean, Tennessee is going to be one of the many teams right now. They've basically said, okay, AJ Brown and Julio are virtually the same, 71 and 6,800. I'm interested to see if that flips. Does it separate? Is AJ Brown going to be 8,500 and Julio 5,600 in a couple weeks? And where do you lean right off the bat with those two?
I love Julio this year.
Okay.
I know he had like a minor injury or whatever today. I don't think it's anything. And Mike Vrabel said he's not worried about it. It's Monday practice in early August. I'm not concerned. I love AJ Brown too, but I think Julio is getting a bad rap this year. And when you consider that everyone worries about injuries, they ignore the fact that he's played 14 or more games in like every season since 2013, except last year, Ben. He's been a wide receiver 7 or better in every single full season he's played. I don't think Julio's washed yet at all. And last year in the games that he did play start to finish, he was the wide receiver 2. He averaged over 100 yards per game. So yes, I still think Julio is going to be good.
You don't have to sell me on Julio. All right. We got.
Oh yeah. Okay. We haven't talked about him. So I didn't know.
I'm a Julio for a lot. I think, again, when narratives and trends form that I don't think are predictive around players, they can mask a lot of things. And Julio's knock about not scoring, I think, really got people soured on who I know he's obviously not prime Julio, but when he's healthy, he's not a $6,800 player, even in an offense with many other weapons.
Yeah, no way.
No way.
Last year, he was Wow, that's crazy. He was pretty inexpensive at times. 6,700, finished with 37 DraftKings points. So many of these games, Julio was just absurdly good that I have no worries going there. What do you want to do? Let's plug our defense in first. Just go with a cheap D. You can pull this one. We went Buffalo last one. I don't mind going back to it, but I'll do whatever you want to do.
I mean, where are you looking to land in D? Like, I do think this Chargers-Washington game is very interesting from either side. Both those defenses are presumably going to be healthier. I think both quarterbacks are live to make some mistakes, whether it's Fitzy or Herbert. I don't mind going there, or do you want to land more in like the Miami against New England?
I'm cool plugging Washington in and seeing what they do.
I like that. You could get Gibson with them.
Sure. Yeah, at 5,900.
Yeah, now we're very safe territory. We've got 3 spots left, and we have 5,200. A lot of permutations that are going to work there.
This is one of those spots where I wouldn't mind going like with like an Adam Troutman or something, just because he's so cheap. What are you thinking at tight end? Go somewhere cheap.
I certainly don't mind. Obviously, it's not going to be connected to the stack. So if we're not going to pay all the way up and we're on a lineup like this, it seems very unlikely that we're going to be able to do that. I don't mind going Troutman, getting a piece of this Saints team that, you know, is going to be beneficial no matter who's under center, because Jameson Taysom Hill is always going to be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some really good running backs in the 6K range. Like,
it's loaded. It's
loaded. If you wanted to go Aaron Jones here, I wouldn't even be opposed to that. With Troutman on the other side, that doesn't bother me any at all. There are a lot of different ways you could go. I don't like Eckler against Washington. Obviously, we have Washington D, but I like Aaron Jones quite a bit. I don't know if it makes sense to pay all the way up, because you can, of course. But let's just say if you did decide to go with Aaron Jones and then you have Troutman on the other side of that, you have 6,000 remaining at flex. That opens it up for Chris Carson, Mostert, kind of a dead area. I don't love anything there. Would it make more sense to say semi-punt that last flex position and go to the top with a running back here?
So you could do that. I'm going to propose another question just to see, what do you think about, if you wanted to be very aggressive, one of the strategies that I really like is when you have a stack that could be really popular, is to go against the stack, but stick with the offense. So if Joe Mixon has a monster game on the ground, you're probably going to kill a lot of the Burrow stacks.
Love that.
He's 6,200. I think very reasonable, and it's still a good environment.
Love it.
You've got Edwards-Helaire. You've got Miles Sanders. McLaurin is available. A lot of ways you could go.
Yeah, I love the idea of doing that. We have Gibson, so I don't want Gibson and McLaurin with the Washington, but Mixon there to counteract that super popular stack in Cincinnati makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's obviously a high leverage spot, but if, again, you just want to think about it in the sense, say Joe Mixon blows up, big game on the ground. Well, all the Joe Burrow people are now in big trouble, most likely, and you're at a huge advantage. And then we've got room. You could go to Kittle. I don't really like double tight end.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't like doing that either, but yeah, Kittle at 63 is interesting.
Not the worst. And even
where are you at on Najee Harris? Someone mentioned them earlier and I was quick to say no, but I could at least somewhat understand against the Buffalo defense, run defense that was pretty bad last year, but that offensive line scares the hell out of me in Pittsburgh.
It scares me too. Najee, I mean, he's just a player. I think he's going to be very, very good. Can catch the ball, dynamic. The volume should be there. I don't think they want Big Ben dropping back like 60 times a game like it felt like he was last year. I wouldn't mind it. I don't think it's the ideal spot. You know, in Buffalo is certainly not the easiest of games, but you've got some, I want to throw it back to you. What are your thoughts on Miles Sanders kind of in general and at 65 in this opening game?
I am 100% okay with Miles Sanders here.
Okay.
Everyone's acting like Kerryon Johnson is going to be a real thorn in his side, and that Kenneth Gainwell, I don't know if you like him or not, but he was still a 5th round guy. I think Kenneth Gainwell could emerge as someone that gets some opportunities, but Sanders saw 75% of snaps last year. He had 3 of the 10 longest runs in the league, and they came against Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and New Orleans. He had a completely decimated offensive line. No Brandon Brooks, no Andre Dillard. Jason Peters was dead, and then Lane Johnson was either out or injured. The list goes on. Carson Wentz was horrible. Sanders dropped a lot of balls, but he didn't drop anything in his rookie year. So I think Sanders could have one of those games where nobody wants to go near him, and he pops off for like 2 huge runs, couple touchdowns against a bad Atlanta defense. I like Sanders at that price point, and I think it's a fair price point.
Me too. Mr. Offseason in chat. Miles Sanders at low ownership destroys the Falcons. I don't think that that's a crazy narrative that we could be talking about in week 2 or on your recap show, because carry on, listen, in today's day of the NFL, there's no like stranglehold on these positions. Someone is going to take some touches.
Yeah.
Who cares if it's Gainwell or
Eion Johnson? I don't care either at all. It doesn't bother me none. Let's go over this. Jordan, I think you forgot to put Adam Troutman in there at tight end. So Troutman at 2,900, flex it with Miles Sanders. Boom. Kyler Murray. Here's your stack for the Cardinals.
Boston Scott's.
Oh, wait, are you back? You froze for a good minute there.
I'm here.
I just started going.
I'm here.
Okay.
If you can hear me.
Yeah, you're delayed, but I can hear you now. Murray, Gibson, Mixon. And for what it's worth, I haven't looked at like who's in the 1 and 4 o'clock slots. Always put your 4 o'clock player in the flex if you can. Rondale Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Adam Troutman, Miles Sanders, Washington football team defense. I like it, Ben. I like it.
This is the type of lineup. I'm not saying, this is the Millie, but like these are the type of risk reward balances that I think can be really effective in these giant tournaments.
Let's close the show out with this. If you don't know this, 2 years ago, Ben took second in the Millie Maker for what was it? Was it 250 at the time? Or was it 100?
No, it should have been. I had the lineup in a lot of things, so it added up. But unfortunately, the Millie was 100K to second.
Right, but you won another big tournament that I think you still cleared. Like
I had the lineup in a lot of things. Yeah,
okay,
so that was useful.
What did you do? And I know you played. I think you hand built like 24 lineups or something around that.
Something like that.
What with that build? I know you had Derrick Henry. What was it about that build that you did differently that made it stand out from the rest?
I mean, it was a simple situation of it's not like, when you build lineups, like anyone who tells you like, lineup 18, that's the lineup. Like, well,
of course
if that's
not,
the
but
case,
I'm
you
saying
shouldn't have any other
hindsight. Like I always know
Absolutely.
With every lineup, you do something, you tweak something to make it. I've talked to you for a long time about this,
Yeah. So yeah, really, no matter what sport I'm playing, it has a theme. And for that particular lineup, the difference was Allen Hurns made the difference. I went to a Miami offense that had Parker and some of these other guys, and it was kind of like, I'm going to use Joe Mixon as the analogy. It's a team that's getting a lot of buzz, but he's not the guy that's the focal point in people's eyes. And in that particular week, there were people that thought Miami may produce some offense, but it wasn't Allen Hurns per se. So I like to try to capture team's production, but maybe you pivot within the team. And if the Bengals have 35 points, everyone assumes that it's going to be Burrow with 5 touchdowns, or maybe not. Maybe it's Joe Mixon, and you can create massive value within a game just by doing those simple little things.
Dude, Mixon, Dalvin Cook lineups could be really interesting too.
That's the kind of builds I like to experiment with, because no one's going to have that type of combination, and they're great players in their own right. It's just a weird combo.
All right, guys. Well, this has been a ton of fun, Ben. This has been
interesting show.
We lost you, but we got you back, and we kept it running smooth for the time being. Jordan, thanks as always for producing. Guys, hey, I don't know if this helped at all. It helped me. I'm seeing things very clearly right now. Like Ben said, everything can change, but at this point, you get a good grasp on it early. We have some fun with it, and it's just fun building lineups and talking about football for DFS purposes this early in the year. So appreciate all you for hanging out. Pretty successful stream given how far out we are, and we owe it to you guys for subscribing and liking these videos and, helping us as we go and continue to hit milestones as always right here at Awesemo. Follow the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Be greatly appreciated. You'll love it. Same with the Awesemo Odds channel. Check out the breakfast menu and all the stuff we're doing over there, all our short form videos on the Awesemo. We have an Awesemo fantasy football show, by the way, 5 days a week. So I think you'd enjoy that if you enjoy this. We'll see you guys back here soon. Appreciate it as always. And let's go week 1, baby.